February 2026 may not bring a long list of sweeping new laws that change everyday life across Ontario, but it does introduce one clear, effective change that matters immediately for anyone dealing with the courts. It also brings several deadline-driven compliance items and government milestones that can affect families, businesses, and taxpayers across the province. This narration walks through what is new in February 1st, then ends with a short recap of major Ontario changes that already took effect in January. The biggest Ontario-wide change with a firm February effective date arrives on February 1. Ontario's civil litigation system moves onto updated procedure requirements through amendments to the Rules of Civil Procedure under Regulation 194. The practical shift is about forms and filing accuracy. Motion documents become more standardized around the correct prescribed forms, including clarification that a notice of motion must be in Form 37A. Appellate motion and appeal forms are also updated and referenced more explicitly inside the rules, which matters for filings connected to the Court of Appeal and Divisional Court. The risk is administrative and immediate. Using the wrong form after February, one can lead to filing rejection, service problems, or avoidable delays, especially when timelines are tight. The people most affected include anyone starting or already in civil litigation in the Ontario Superior Court system, anyone appealing or responding to an appeal, and paralegals, clerks, and law firms using older saved templates. A simple February checklist is to confirm your forms match the updated references before you serve or file, and if you are self-represented, avoid relying on old PDFs saved on your device. Next is a Child Services Regulation update expected to appear in the Ontario Gazette in February 2026. It amends Ontario Regulation 155/18 under the Child, Youth and Family Services Act, 2017. Even though it is scheduled for February publication, the coming into force clause sets the effective date as the later of July 1, 2026 and the day it is filed, so it takes effect no earlier than July 1. That makes February a preparation month for children's aid societies, licensed out-of-home care operators, compliance teams, and organizations that build screening and governance workflows around the regulation. A practical step is to identify which internal policies and training modules rely on the existing regulation language and set a review date in February to prepare well ahead of the in-force date. February also brings an important Canada Revenue Agency compliance shift for the trucking sector. The agency says it has lifted the moratorium on penalties for failing to report fees for services for the 2025 tax year and later years in the trucking industry. Businesses can be assessed penalties if they fail to report payments for services exceeding $500 in a calendar year, made to a Canadian-controlled private corporation in the trucking industry. Businesses must report applicable payments in Box 048 on the T4A slip. The stated deadline is February 28, 2026. But because that date falls on a Saturday, information returns are considered on time if received or postmarked on or before March 2, 2026. Carriers, dispatch operators, trucking-adjacent businesses, and payroll teams should confirm whether they meet the agency's trucking test, review 2025 payments for the threshold, and ensure Box 048 is populated correctly. For Toronto residents, February is also a key budget month. The City of Toronto 2026 budget process moves to City Council consideration at a special meeting on Tuesday, February 10, 2026. The city's launch materials cite an operating budget of $18.9 billion and a 2026 to 2035 capital plan of $63.1 billion. Residents will be watching for confirmed service changes, program commitments, and any fee or levy decisions that may affect household costs in 2026. Tax season steps up in February as online filing opens. The Canada Revenue Agency says Net file and refile reopen on Monday, February 23, 2026 at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, allowing early filers to start submitting 2025 returns. A smart approach is not to rush filing if key slips are still missing. February also brings a security change, with CRA account users required to have a backup multi-factor authentication option on file, such as a passcode grid or a third-party authenticator app. Signing in early and setting it up can prevent lockouts. Finally, the end of February does not automatically mean tax slips must already be in hand. For most people, the 2025 T4 filing due date is March 2, 2026, and employers must provide slips and file by that date. To close, the January recap includes expanded carbon monoxide alarm requirements, the Blue Box transition to full producer responsibility, new public job posting requirements for certain employers, and impaired driving penalty changes that began January 1, 2026.